ignoring something does not make it go away. That's an interesting idea. So I think that this the yap today is going to be a little bit sort of all over the place because I have like a couple of different ideas, but let's see if we can't tie them together somehow. So when I say ignoring something does not make it disappear or go away, basically this can, it can apply to anything when you really think about it. It can be problems, it can be people, it can be all sorts of different things. Usually, ignoring something is not the smartest choice that you have available when whatever it might be. If it's temporarily ignoring something, I think that's totally fine, and I think that you can, let's say, get away with it in quote unquote, right? But ignoring something is not really the way to go long term for anything. So, and when we talk about problems, the idea is that those are always going to exist no matter what, because I mean that's kind of like what life is, right? I mean, it might not be, it depends on what you define a problem as. Obviously, problem, you could if you have a bad connotation for the word problem, then you could of course say, you know what, no, life isn't just problems. But you could also call it, I don't know, you could call it quests, you could call it obstacles, you could call it challenges, right? Any one of those words would work as a synonym for what I would say are life's problems, quote unquote. And really, the idea is that I personally, I don't know, once again, if other people would agree with me here, but I have this has happened to you 100%. I'm very confident. Let's think back to when you were in school, or maybe you are in school, and then think back like what during school time, right? You were like, oh my god, I really want to play my game. You got one game that's like you're super into it. You come home, right? You maybe do your homework, maybe you don't, and then you're straight to the game. Bam! You stay up way too late. Your next day, you're back at school, and you're like, oh my god, I really want to play this game. You're like super obsessed. And then either, a holiday comes, vacation comes, the weekend comes, and you have basically a huge chunk of time. And you start the game, and after an hour, you're like, I'm kind of not enjoying this anymore. How does that happen? Like, why does that happen? That's crazy, right? If we are occupied with something different, we yearn for, I wouldn't necessarily say an escape, but like we yearn for this thing, right? The game that we wanted to play. And now we have the time, and maybe you can play it for a day or maybe even 2 days, right? But then sort of all of a sudden your interest just wanes. I don't know. That's very strange to me. And that has happened to me quite a few times. And the idea is that what has happened to me before as well, let's say if we take like, school break, right? So you get like, it depends on obviously which country you're from, but we get our summer break is 6 weeks in Germany. And I always had like the first week, absolutely amazing. It's just always awesome. You're chilling. But then after your first 1.5-ish weeks, you probably have a very different sleep rhythm than you had before, which is not always good. And then, I'm gonna be real, by like week 3, I would say, I am almost sort of, I'm sort of done and bored. And I have always occupied myself with something. I've written 2 books, and I've done, videos. We've done videos, right? And I always had something to occupy my time, but there's only so much time you can sort of spend on this stuff if it's not your job, right? So I don't know. I think it's an interesting conundrum, or once again conundrum. That's kind of I used that word before in a different video, but yeah, it's sort of an interesting idea to think about, that you sort of get used to. Not used to, but like if you don't have anything to do, then the question is like, why even get up at that point, right? There's no reason to get up. And if you don't have a reason to get up, I don't think that's good either, right? So I don't think that humans are made to just laze around and sit and sleep all day long, let's say. So that's one of the things that's kind of interesting. That's why I want to go back to the problems idea, right? So there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be something to do. When you really think about it, in theory, you have always something to do, and usually you also know what it is. Like, it's not like there is, because just by pure entropy, right? There's going to be something to do. If you're looking around your room, you're like, I could probably clean this up. I could probably vacuum the room. Like, let's be honest, you could probably vacuum the room, unless you've just done it, but you know what I mean, right? Change your bed sheets. It's like, you could probably do that. But then you're like, I'm not feeling like it. Interesting. But there is something to do, though. There is something to conquer. And I recently watched the really interesting video. I haven't watched it entirely through, actually. I need to get back to that. And that was Dr. K speaking to Mr. Who's the Boss. Really interesting interview, which was, I mean, fascinating to me. And they were also talking about the idea of problems, that life is just always going to be problems. And then sort of the idea, okay, how do we define problems? And can there ever be a time where you don't have any problems, where you're fully at peace? And then the question is, does one necessarily follow from the other? Can you be at peace but also have a lot of different problems? And I saw a great short on that as well, that I just remembered, where Patrick Bet-David said, when you have a well that's deep enough, right? So a water well that's deep enough, then the water is always 18 degrees. I don't know if this is true or not, but even if it's a metaphor, it's still gonna be useful. And what happens is that when you get that water out, if it's, you know, hot in the 18 degrees C, I would say, not Fahrenheit. I would 18 degrees Fahrenheit is, I think, a little bit. Wait, is that, how much is that? Fahrenheit 18 to C. Let's see. That's -7 degrees. Yeah, okay. I think that's 18 C. Anyway, so it's 18 degrees Celsius. And the idea is you get the water out in summer when it's like, you know, let's say when it's like, I don't know, 80, 90 Fahrenheit, you know, 28, 32 degrees Celsius, then the 18 degrees is going to be, oh, that's super refreshing, right? It's cold. And if it's cold, right, if it's like, I don't know, if it's only like 40 or 50 outside, then all of a sudden the 18 degrees is going to be really warm, and it's going to be refreshing in the other direction. And the thing that was sort of said for the metaphor there is, you should be exactly like that water, always at 18 degrees, no matter what happens outside of you. That's a really interesting idea, right? So that is the peace that we are talking about, right? The peace that comes from the inside. I think I've written this down numerous times in my journals. I've written down peace comes from the inside. It's a very, very good thing to think about. And no matter what comes externally, your internal locus of control, let's say, or your internal being, your internal existence, there has to be something in there that you have to come at peace. Like, you have to just sort of rest in that peace. There has to be something there. And if you can focus on that, that's interesting. Sometimes it's a little bit, what would you say? It's hard because in today's world, obviously, we have so much chatter going on. And what I recommend you do, if you want to try this out, genuinely, listen. It might be one of the most useful things you can do. Sit down, be it on your bed or on your couch or wherever, and just stare at a wall for an hour. It sounds super stupid, but I'm telling you, it is incredible. And also, it will show you that, you know what, you could do it. I highly recommend you try this out. And if it's not for an hour, do half an hour. Do at least half an hour. I think that's fair. You know, put your phone on silent mode, put a timer on for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and then just set it down and just look at the wall until the timer goes out. That's an idea for today. And hope you found this useful and you learned something new. And talk to you next time. Until then.